Hey guys, welcome back to Pause, welcome back to Parkitect, the return to Main Street. So this is Parkitect Build, the series here on the channel where we are building a theme park on the game Parkitect. So if this is the first one you've found, hi, welcome to the series. So these episodes come out, we have at least one a week, some weeks we'll have 2 or 3, and we're just trying to smash through and build this theme park together. We're doing a little bit more work on the main street today. As you can see, currently I've just started work on sort of like a big building. If this was a real park, this would be like a gift shop. There might be some food offerings in there. But the aim, as you can see as well, I've made a little path through. That a lot of these buildings will be interconnected, so you can sort of walk straight through some of them. So from the outside, obviously they look like individual buildings, but in reality they are sort of one big building. A bit like how it works at Disney World, Disneyland, in the Magic Kingdom style parks, where sort of down Main Street you have the Emporium and loads of different shops. But from the outside it looks like separate shops, and the inside is one long building. So that's the kind of what we're going for. So we'll see how we get on with that as we go down. But this side is pretty much done in terms of the 3 buildings. I'm going to stick another 2, possibly 1 or 2 buildings on the other side of the road in an up and coming episode, and then the basics of the main street will be in place. Now we've still got a fair bit of work to do in terms of like customizing the buildings and making them look a little bit better, because they are very bland at the moment. That is intentional at this stage. This is purely just getting the buildings in, getting the shapes there, and then all the little touch-up jobs I can do down the line. Towards the end of this video, we do a little bit of like design work on the buildings. This one I'm doing now, and the larger building to the left. It's only a start. I'm just trying to play around with a few bits and see what works. What makes the buildings look a little bit better. Down the line we'll do more and more with that, with the details, as and when they become available, and as we put some more mods and that kind of thing in this park. So what I'm starting on here is the very first in-park staff area that I've done. Now a big part of this game is the utilities and the way stock is delivered to shops. So if you go back to episode 1 and 2, well, 1 mainly, where I make the finishing touches on the entrance plaza and the original staff area, I build a depot that's sort of over to, if you're looking at the main entrance, it's to the right hand side. Now what you can do with those depots is have underground pipes that lead to other smaller depots around the park that deliver stock to certain shops, and you can specify which shops use which depots and so forth. So this is what I'm planning to do with this park, is hide these little staff areas around the backstage areas and have, as a real park would, behind the scenes employee entrances. And that's what I start to do in this episode. So I put a nice employee path in place. There's another staff room on this side of the park as well. We get some nice tree coverage, and yeah, the basics of the pipe work go in. So we're just getting the sort of the basics in there at the moment, the fundamental elements of the park, and I want to build the infrastructure at the same time as building the park and try and make it as smart as possible. So this here, I can see that is the depot that I'm popping down, and then the underground pipe work is this that I'm laying now. So I'm just dragging it over underground to the other depot. It just did pop up a little bit here, so I do make that go back underground in a second and have a little play with that one. But this is the first time I've properly used these depots and these underground pipes. But they do work really well, as you'll see in a couple of minutes once we get it finished and lined up. The idea behind them is brilliant, because you can make really unique parks with this game, because this kind of feature isn't in other games. Even Planet Coaster, this kind of feature isn't in there. Not that, I mean, you could build this kind of stuff, but it wouldn't be functional. So it's a really good feature that this game has. So I'm also building the little bit of a staff infrastructure on the opposite side of the main street as well, again just to try and get a bit of realism in there. And I'm trying to hide as much of it as possible behind trees and things like that, putting little doorways and backstage entrances and pathways and things. So from a guest perspective, which we will have as we go down the line with this park, because there is actually a first person view mod which you can get for this game, which I've played around with in the past, but I haven't got it installed at the moment. So once we complete each area, we will do a little first-person view and look around and have a little wander, and that's what we'll do with the main street in probably a couple of episode time once we get it to a relatively finished standpoint. Now, I'm not expecting this park to be completely finished before I move on to the next stage. I'm going to keep adding little bits and pieces as we go. As it is a game that is in early access, so more features, more theming options and that kind of thing will be added over the time, so we can add those to the park over time. So I want it to be constantly developing and evolving, just like the game is, so we can go through this process with the game as it develops, and then really see how we can implement the new features as they go live. So I'm just sticking quite a selection of shops and food options in this area, as like I said, it would be quite a big shop in real life, with obviously there'd be merchandise stores and all that kind of stuff. We haven't got that in the game yet, so currently it is just an empty building with a couple of shops in there. But like I said, as time goes on, we will get the interiors filled out as them kind of props become available, which I'm sure they will at some point. So now I'm just playing around with, I was trying to find fences there and gates to block off the staff areas. Currently the only one in the game is a wooden gate, and I didn't think that really fit, so I just left it. I do eventually put like a electronic sign there, which is a no entry sign, but that's a little bit later on. So now I'm just fiddling around with the trims of these entrances to try and make them look a little bit more finished. And I find these nice little edge pieces, which I haven't really played with before, but they work quite well. The way you can just sort of trim around. I do make a little error here, but I do go back and correct that a bit later on. So that one in the middle's kind of stuck the wrong way, but I do correct that in a bit once I get a bit more of the infrastructure in. So this is where I put the no entry sign. Like I said, these are quite robust as well, because you can change the wording. You can actually specify what employees they're no entry to as well. I don't really know why you would do that, but yeah, the option's there. So this is how we select the shops for the depot. So you click add, and then you literally press every shop you want that depot to service, and then all the stock for those shops go to that depot. So it's really handy, so you know that anytime these run out of stock, it's delivered pretty much instantly to that area. So it's a really clever little system, and as long as you've got a hauler that's in that area, you're fine, and they'll deliver the stock straight away. Now, with the staff and the haulers and that kind of thing, you can specify their zones. We haven't done that just yet, but that is something we will probably do down the line as we get onto this, just so there's always going to be the right employees in the right areas. So this is where I put the second staff room in, again just to give them a little bit of a staff area for this side of the park, because I don't want it to be too much walking around, because the staff will be really lazy and moaning like they currently are doing because they've got nothing to do. So yeah, we stick this little staff room in. I fence it all off. I'm trying to make all the little staff areas nice and independent and fenced off, so it's all separate. And like I said, as we go through each time, we're going to keep hiding these things better and better, so there's going to be no view of the outside and the backstage areas from the guest view in the park. That's the plan. I want to make it as realistic as possible with the staff areas, but I don't want them to be visible for guests, as a real park would, or a decent real park should be. So I put a few little lamps in the backstage areas, because you need the staff need light as well. So I thought I'd use the little square wall lamps for the backstage. It is currently the only wall light that's in the game, but it's fine for now. I'll just correct that bit there. But yeah, it's fine for now. It'll do the job, just until more become available. So yeah, put a few more on the walls, and then sort of some last little touch-ups really. You see the little haulers running back and forth. I think I have got 3 already in this part, but that one seems to be running his ass off compared to the others. Lazy. I need to sack some people. There we go. So I'm just checking the inside of it. And like I said, it is just a very open building, but you see what I'm going for with it. So this is where we start doing a little bit of detail work on the buildings. And I find these they look like wonky wooden posts, which I quite like. I don't know if I'm going to keep them, but I was just trying a few things to see what worked and what looked good. So I just try a few bits really here, and a lot of this game is trial and error with these sort of things. And I just want to see if I could put like a nice distinctive trim on the outside of it. There isn't kind of like a top piece to that wooden frame, which is a shame because it looked really nice as a kind of top of a sign or like top of this building. So I tried this sort of cog piece. It didn't really fit, so I do swap that in a minute. But ideally, I'd like a log that fits the top of that, because that'd be really good for making signs across ride areas and things like that. Entrance signs. I can make a really good like adventure theme sign. But again, maybe down the line, these sort of things will be put in. They might already be made. I'll have a look on the Park. I think it's Parkitect Nexus, I believe, is the sort of the fan website where they've got mods and add-ons and things. So we'll have a look on that and see what's available, because I think there's a lot more options out there that I'm just not using currently. So that's something we will do down the line. So I just add these sort of details to the centre of the buildings to make it look a little bit less boring. Obviously, once we finalise the design, I will go all the way round. This is still early days, work in progress. But yeah, it's looking a little bit more detailed now, and again, I was just going through the menus, trying to see what else is available. And I found these little sort of floor edges as well. So they do look. It makes things look a little bit more finished and sort of polished in a way. And I quite like them. So a lot of the colouring as well of the buildings, you might have noticed, are the default colours that come just with the wall pieces. Now again, it's very easy to change colours on this game with the paintbrush tool and the colour picker and all that kind of stuff. So don't think that just because I'm using the default colours that means that's staying. Again, a lot of the detail work, especially with these buildings, is going to be done over time. So yeah, don't just think everything that you're seeing now is the finished product, because it won't be. Everything will be retouched and added to over time. So yeah, a lot of these colours will probably change. Like I did with the entrance plaza back in the first episode, and I wasn't too happy with it, so I went back to remake it, recolour it, and just make it look a little bit better. And again, I'll probably do that with every aspect of this. If I build something I don't like it, I'll probably go back and change it. And that's probably what I'll do with this building here. So, like I said, I'm just adding these sort of details, these lines. It's trying to just give it depth and make it look a little bit better than just a plain wall. That is the one thing that's currently lacking in this, is sort of your little details for the outside of buildings. Like I'd quite like signage and different lighting and all the little bits and pieces that can really make buildings look unique. That's currently the little things that are missing from this build. But we could just work with the pieces we've got for now and try and make it look as nice as possible. So I add a few little path extras. I'm trying to make the path extras like the benches and the bins more suited to the style of the building rather than the actual main street here, because it's set back a little bit on a kind of its own patio area. I wanted to give it its own kind of independent feel, so that's why I've gone for the stone benches on the little paved area as opposed to the sort of metal benches that I've got the rest of Main Street. Again, it's just to give it its own distinction, and I think it works quite well. I think in a real life park it would give it its own, like I said, independence and its own identity, and that's kind of what I was going for with it. So I just finish up a little bit more with the backstage area, and that's about it for this episode really. So like I said before, this one was mainly just getting that building and the start of the staff infrastructure in, and that's really what we've done in this episode. So in the next one we're going to focus on the other side of Main Street to get the last few buildings in, and that is pretty much where we are at the moment. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this series so far, and I'll see you very, very soon. So thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.